All right, well, good morning, everybody. Here's the sign-in sheet that I'll pass around each day. Not that attendance is required or for a grade, that is a legality thing where all classes are supposed to take attendance. I'm Mr. Bell, this is Stat 213, summer 2015. So, everybody welcome in, here's the syllabus. Spend some time going over this. I kind of want to call roll here the first few days just to get to know your names. Okay. Oscar? Ortiz? Cortez? Jessica? Entwistle? Morgan? Crystal? Jones? Kelsey? Mark? Anybody else? There's a Tabitha, Gary, and Nosheen. Okay. So there's 9 in the class. The cap for this class is actually 35. This is the first time I've taught Stat 213, so it's nice that we're kind of in a small class here. We can spend a little more time on certain subjects rather than when you're in a stats class during the regular semester and there's 35 students. You kind of have to move pretty fast. So, looking at the syllabus. First of all, thank you. So there's my name. My email, that is the best way to contact me, is through my email, matt.bell. My first name is Matthew, but my email is Matt, because there was another Matthew at the time that they put this together. So that is the best way to get a hold of me, all right? I never use Blackboard for this course, all right? I don't use Blackboard for anything. You probably noticed if you've logged on to Blackboard where the class is, I have in big bold letters. I did not use Blackboard. Check your ENMU email and my stat lab. And then I uploaded a syllabus to it, but that's about as far as I'll go with Blackboard. Okay. My office is over in the JWLA, and actually towards the end of class today, we'll go over there. I'll show you where the math, the computer lab is that we use. So we'll go over there, intermittently, maybe once a week or so, and work on homework. So we'll go over there and do that. I'll have you guys actually set up your My Stat Lab account today. You don't even have to have your code. You can set it up through temporary access, and then go pay for your code. I think they give you 14 days to pay for it. The bookstore is selling it as well, and we'll talk about that. My office phone, I'm not in my office that much during the summer. I'm usually in here teaching, so that, if you call it, you can leave a message, and I'll always get back to you. And then my office hours will be directly after this class for half an hour, all 4 days. So right after class every day, if you have questions, you can go over to my office and ask them right after class, all right? Because that's when it's going to be the freshest in your brain. The textbook is optional. This is what the textbook looks like. I do not require you to get it. Something maybe you might want to do is look online for international editions. Sometimes you can find them for 40 or 50 bucks if you really want the textbook. But you can access the textbook through my math lab and actually print the pages off that you want. So there's multiple, and I call it my math lab. It's actually called my stat lab for stats, but I deal with it in my math lab. So I'll probably call it my math lab over and over again, but it's the same thing, okay? So the student access code is what is required. And I'll talk about how to log in. That's actually the last page of your syllabus. Will guide you through how to get enrolled in my grade book in my stat lab. That's where you'll log in, do your homework. We'll take written in-class exams. I'll upload your grade there, so that's where I'll keep all your grading. So at any time you can log into my stat lab and look at your grade book, all right, and tell where you're standing in the class. Highly suggested materials, a 3-ring binder or any kind of notebook. Make sure you have paper to write on, of course, all right? Calculator, something everybody definitely needs to have. A good calculator for this course is just a simple TI-30. This thing's $5, all right? And it's nice because you can enter data into it, and it'll do your mean, standard deviation, range. It'll tell you different things about it. So that's a useful calculator. Really, any TI calculator is useful. I would suggest to try and stay away from a Casio. All right? If you have a Casio, probably go try and find a TI just because it's more difficult to use. All right? And, even in the book, it talks about calculator usage, and it's always a Texas Instruments calculator. Okay, so it's really, they're all kind of streamlined. And all the TI calculators, all the buttons mean the same thing. So even if you have a different version, it's easy to find the same type of operations. A small ruler for graphing, because we're going to do a lot of graphing in here, building what are called histograms and other types of, showing data Whether it's in a box and whisker plot, we'll look at a lot of different things. Now, you don't have to have a ruler, but it's just something that's useful. Pencils, all right, and an eraser. It's okay to make a mistake in this stuff. Now, I think a lot of students get in this mindset from when you're in high school where it's bad to make a mistake. It's actually really good to make a mistake because that's when you really learn what you're doing wrong and then learn how to do it correctly. Okay, so using an eraser is not a bad thing. I burned through a lot of erasers during grad school. All right, that's just part of it. So when you get something wrong, it really helps you to get it right. Okay, I mean, look at Einstein. You know, he failed miserably a lot of times before he got it right. That's part of the process. Okay, and then a highlighter is just useful for different, you know, as you do your notes to highlight definitions, and especially in chapter 1, it's just a lot of definitions. There's a lot of groundwork we have to lay before I can actually get in to start actually looking at data and actually processing and analyzing it. So there's a lot of words you have to know before we can get too far. Course description, which all of you have probably read. Beginning course in basic statistical methodology. Measures of central tendency, variability, and association, probability and sampling distributions, estimation of parameter, and then finally we'll get to what's called testing of a hypothesis. We'll say, well, does this work? Is it possible that 95% of people will fall within a certain confidence interval on a test? And you actually run it through a hypothesis test and can come up with a conclusion that says yes or no. All right? Actually, some scientific a scientific process of answering a question, okay? You know, not just a, well, my opinion is, all right? It's not opinion in statistics, right? It's fact, rooted in fact, just like mathematics. Prereqs, which you've all have met, that's why you're in here. 104, 106, 119. Attendance requirement. Attendance is required for you to help your grade. Now, I would never suggest you to miss a class, but it's not something I am putting a grade on, all right? Now, if you missed a week of class, never emailed me, never heard anything, missed a test, and then 2 days later after I hand the test back, you say, oh, Mr. Bell was sick last week, that's why I missed the test. That's not a very good way to handle things, all right? That's what's called being retroactive. You need to be proactive. Let me know beforehand what's going on, why you're going to miss, if you're going to miss, and so on. Right? You guys understand how bad that looks, right? After you miss a test, you come in, and then you kind of have a little cough. I was sick last week, I missed the test. So a lot of times, you know, which it may be, and sometimes you can't get to the email because you're so sick, but 9 times out of 10 you can contact me in one way or another. Just shoot me an email, all right? And everybody's got a smartphone you can log into. It takes 5 minutes, okay? Grading policy. There will be 4 chapter exams. Let me kind of pull this calendar up. I've kind of got a tentative date. Like I said, this is the first time I've taught stats. And then again, this class is really small, so the pacing for this class and the pacing for a big class during the semester is going to be a lot different. You know, what would take 50 minutes for during a fall class might only take 35 minutes in here because there's only 8 people. So I'm kind of playing that by ear as far as how long things are going to take. That's the nice thing about my math lab is I can change around due dates. You can kind of see what's upcoming and so on. Really, all the assignments for the semester are already put up online. Okay, so you can kind of already see what we're going to cover. The due dates aren't all put up yet because I'm not really sure. I've basically got the due dates up to the first test. So let me pull this up. Okay. So I was kind of going through this and putting dates for the different things, and then I got to the point, well, this section might take a while, so I'm not really sure what's going to take what. So we'll go at a kind of a case-by-case basis. You know, one section might only take half an hour, another section might take 2.5 hours. So we'll kind of play that by ear. Let's zoom in here. But I do kind of have tentative dates for the first exams. What I want to do is give exams on our Thursday, all right, on the last day of the week. That seems to be the best day to take tests. The worst day, of course, would be a Monday morning, right, when you have the whole weekend off. So I try to plan the tests to where they'll be on the Thursday of the week, because we meet Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right, for this class. The first test I have set up for 6/11, which is next Thursday. So already in 2 weeks. You know, there's only an 8-week class, so everything's going to be a lot more condensed. That's why on the first day, you know, in a regular stats class, I would hand out a syllabus, say, here's what we're doing, and let you guys go. Today, you can't really do that, right? I actually have to cover a little material because of how condensed all the entire semester is. which is only in 8 weeks, right? It's half a semester. So 611 looks like the first test, all right? And notice here's the sections that will be on MyMathLab. Now, I don't give them these fancy names on MyMathLab. I just call them section 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and so on. So it looks like the first test will be 611. I'm looking at the second test to be 625, so June 25th. And then the third test looks like the 9th of July. So it's basically the second week, the fourth week, the sixth week. And then the last test will actually have to be on a Tuesday of the last week. And our final exam will be 7/23. Let me write that so you can see it a little bit better. 7/23 at 9 a.m. will be the final. That's the last Thursday of the summer session, right? In here. 7/23 at 9 a.m. is the final. Okay? That's the only one that's definitely set in stone. I mean, that's when we have to take the final exam. The other test dates I can kind of move around a little bit. Okay? And then this last stuff right here is kind of optional if we have time to get in here. So we got to wait and see how long it takes for us to get through this other stuff. But these are all the sections. Everything's kind of mapped out. We'll go up through chapter 8 in the textbook. And if we have time, we'll touch on some of this chapter 11 stuff. All right? So that's kind of the schedule for exams. Now, the chapter exams, the 4 chapter exams will count for 50% of your grade. All right? 25% will be the final. So 75% of the grades for this class are test-based, which is how all the stats classes are. And that's actually less than some classes. Some of our other stats teachers, homework only counts for 20%. Tests are actually 80% of your grade. All right? So tests will be 75%. Homework and quizzes. The quizzes I have are basically the reviews. So I'll have the review for the chapter is in a quiz form. The difference between homework and a quiz is the homework you have help. When you get in there, you can pull up the textbook, show me an example. The quizzes, you just have to put an answer. There's not really any help. So a quiz is a good practice test because there's not any help on it, right? So that's basically what we're using them for. Now, the quizzes and the homework you can do over and over and over again, all right, and get 100 on it, as long as you do it before the due date. So you could, for all these homework assignments, you should be able to get 100%, all right? So that 25% of your grade should be 100%. And then, of course, there's the grading scale on the right. Homework will be assigned at the end of each section. Notice I didn't put day or class period. It's whenever we finish a section, because there might be a time where I finish one section one day and then have to start a section that same day, just kind of how the timetable falls. So once I finish a section, I'll let everybody know, and that's when I'll assign the homework. It'll be usually due after the next class period. So say if we covered something today, the homework for today would be due tomorrow at midnight. So that way you can go home and look at it and come to class tomorrow and ask questions on it. So I always want to at least give one class period where you can ask questions about the homework. All right? It is your responsibility to complete them. Late homework will be docked 25%. I actually changed that. It's only 20%. Right? So if you do a homework assignment late, you lose 20% on the homework assignment. And then, unless there's an approved documented university excuse, which usually doesn't happen during the summer. That's mostly for athletes, people in band or theater that are going on university-sanctioned events. Okay? But the nice thing about doing it online is you can, be out of town somewhere and still be able to get your homework done on time. Okay? So there's homework. Exams, there'll be 4. I went over them. Exams will be announced a week in advance. I'm trying to announce them all right now today. Okay? Now, the days might move a little bit, but that's pretty close to when they will be. No makeup exams unless there is a documented university excuse. And then I have the final exam, Thursday, July 23rd at 9 a.m. That's when I have to give the exam because everybody here is getting the same final. The other tests, I kind of give multiple versions, so everybody has to take it at that time. All right? 9 a.m., July 23rd. Notebook, all notes should be kept in a notebook. That's why these 3-ring binders are nice. Yeah, I use the same run over and over again. You probably have some sitting in your house somewhere that you've used for a previous class. Go get it, take everything out of it. That could be your homework or your notebook for this course. Assistants, I have my office hours that are listed here on the syllabus. Notice my office hours are also by appointment as well. All right. If you have a question and you say, well, Mr. Bell, I can't come at 11. Can I meet you at 12:30? Yes, just let me know a little bit in advance and I'll meet you. Okay. Now, don't email me at 12:15 asking if we can meet at 12:30. All right. That's not really something that's feasible. But, you know, even on Friday, even though I don't have anything listed on Friday, if you want to meet on Friday to talk about homework, we could do that. All right. Just let me know a little bit in advance. Responsibilities, attend every class, get help when you first need it. That's a really important thing with this stats class because we're moving so fast, all right? Don't have a question about something and kind of push it off and then we already move on to the next topic because a lot of the things build on what we've talked about previously, all right? Just like any other math class, okay? Show up and be on time. Oh, there's also tutoring available in the alley. Sorry, I skipped that one. Does everybody know where the alley is? There's actually tutors in there during the summer. It's in the base of the Cub, which is right here where the cafeteria is on the other side of the College of Business. So down in the basement, there'll be people in there that can help you. Now, they might have certain hours. You have to go check with them to see when the stats tutor is there. But a class this small, I could probably help with just about all the questions that you have, all right? Show up on time, complete all assignments, take all exams. I mean, most of this stuff has to do with showing up, right? Actually, effort more than anything. Come to class, be on time, be an active learner, pay attention, right? And be prepared. Notice I don't really have much written on here about cell phones. Now, I don't allow you to use a cell phone on an exam for obvious reasons. But if you need a cell phone, you know, you're welcome to have it in here, have it on vibrate so you're not disturbing anybody else. If you get a call, go outside in the hallway and answer it. All right? I'm not going to treat you like some professors do and say, everybody put your cell phone on the table, leave it there the whole class, you can never look at it. All right? You guys are adults. We're all adults in here. You know, you're in here because you want to be in here. All right? You're spending money out of your own pocket to be in here. So, you know, I don't think it goes without saying that, you know, I should stand up here and say pay attention. I mean, you guys already know that. So, academic integrity. Now here's the 4 boring blurbs that we have to have in every syllabus for every class. Academic integrity, no cheating. If you're caught cheating, I have the ability to give you an F for the course. All right? Depending on severity of the case, an offense may also lead to an F for the entire course, not just the test. There is a link right here to the student handbook if you have any questions about that. All right? So basically, you know, just keep your eyes on your own test. And a lot of times it's pretty easy to catch somebody cheating in a math course because you do the same wrong answers. And there's really no way that you would know that, you know, that was the answer that was written down unless you were looking at your neighbor's test. And in a class this small, I don't think it's going to be much of an issue. Now, if there was 35 students in here, it would probably be a little bit harder to worry about, all right, for me. But in here, I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. Especially because you guys are here for summer. I mean, you guys are obviously serious about school or else you wouldn't be here, all right? You don't take a summer class because it's the funnest thing to do, right? You take a summer class because you want to get done. You want to finish. You want to pull your grade up, you know, because you're serious about what you're doing in here, okay? Next one, copyrights. Basically what this means is you can't take stuff from the course and go and try to create your own statistics course and charge people for it. That's what that's saying. It's like when you watch a movie and at the beginning it gives you that disclaimer. You can't copy the movie and then go out on the block and try and sell it. All right? It's the same type of thing. All right? All the stuff in here is copyrighted by Pearson. And Pearson spends a lot of money making sure their copyrights get upheld. I mean, they're a huge company. You know, when they have a textbook, they don't want it to be out for somebody to be selling it on the side. So that's what that's talking about, okay? Now, you're welcome to keep this stuff, and you can look at it, and you're welcome to help your friends. You just can't charge a fee for it. You can't make money off of it, all right? Because maybe next fall you have a friend that's taking statistics. You know, you're welcome to help them. I mean, your knowledge is yours. The stuff in your brain you own. Now, using a piece of paper and selling it, that's a different story, okay? FERPA and privacy, what that has to do with is, you know, your records are sealed. Nobody can ask for your academic records, not even your parents. The only people that can is if you are on a scholarship, all right? If you're on an athletic scholarship and the football coach calls me and says, how's so-and-so doing in class, I have to tell them, okay? But other than that, your records are sealed and only for your eyes, okay? And I'll never discuss a grade in front of the other class, okay? Now, if you come up and say, Mr. Bell, why did I get a 75% on my test? That's something that you said. I wouldn't say you got a 75 on your test, okay? And when I hand stuff back, I always try and put it face down. So I really try to keep that type of stuff private, as it should be, okay? In this course, we will be working with a lot of third-party applications. And let me mention, this class is Mediasite. That's why we're in this room. This little camera back here kind of goes back and forth and follows me around. After each class period, the guy that was in here when we started, his name's John Erdman. He's the one that takes care of all that stuff. He sends me a link of the lecture. So what I'll do is take the lecture and I'll email it to everybody, all right? So that if you happen to miss a class one day, you can watch the Mediasite. Now, it's kind of boring because, I mean, this class is an hour and 50 minutes, so when you only need a 5-minute snippet of what you have a question on, you kind of have to watch the whole video, you know? And psychologists have shown that videos over 10 minutes, people tend to not watch. I mean, that's shown on social media and a lot of stuff like that. When people look down and see a 4-digit time, they tend to pass over it. So that's something hard about this, is it's an hour and 50 minutes, so it's kind of hard to skim through a whole video. But it's nice to have it if you need it, all right, if you happen to miss a class. So that's something that'll come out, and this is the first time I've taught Mediasite, so it'll kind of be play it by ear here in the first week, and then we'll kind of get in a nice mode and a nice kind of, you know, process of how we're going to cover this stuff, getting a routine of sending out the link. I think he'll send it to me by 5 p.m. tonight, so I would send it out the next morning, is I think how it works, right? So that's one of the third-party applications. The MyMathLab's a third-party application. Don't really use much other stuff in here. Might use some Excel stuff, because Excel does a lot of neat statistics software. You know, you can put in all these data points. You know, say if you have 100 things of data, you don't want to sit there by hand adding them all together and squaring them all, because it takes a long time, so that's why Excel is really useful. So we'll mess with Excel a little bit. Have you guys all taken IS 151? Is anybody not taking it? No? Okay, so everybody's probably pretty familiar. You know, Excel, when you first open it up, it's a little bit daunting, but once you learn a few of the commands, it's really a neat program, all right? And the nice thing is it's all over campus, right? It's on every computer. And there's actually some free Excel software that I'll show you later on called OpenOffice that does the same stuff, and it's free, all right? Qualified students with disabilities. So if you have any type of disability, all you need to go is to the DSO office, fill out a form, and bring it back to me, all right? Now, you can bring it back to me anytime. I would like it within the first 2 weeks of class, all right, before the first test. So maybe if you need a little more time on exams, anything like that, just go fill out a form and bring it back to me, okay? Now, I don't ask you any questions about what it is or anything like that. That's your own personal preference. You know, that's handled between you and the disabilities office. Okay, you bring me the form, I sign it, and you're good to go. Okay? And then the phone number and the room is down there. And if if you're asking yourself, well, what if I do need some extra time? Go over there and ask them. You know, they run you through kind of a test that will let you know if it's good or not for you to go in there. All right? So that's the 4 boring blurbs that everybody's got to hear. And now let's look at this last page. So this is to enroll in my grade book. And this is something we'll do towards the end of class. We'll actually go over to the computer lab, and I'll have everybody enrolled in my grade book before you leave today. Okay? It's really pretty simple. Has anybody ever used my math lab or my stat lab? You are welcome to use your same login. Okay? You can use your same username and password. You don't have to create a new one. Now, what you need to do, though, is, now, if you've used it in the past, you still have to buy this access code because it links it to the textbook. Now, if you've taken stats in the past and not passed it, and it's for this exact same textbook, you don't have to buy your code again. All right? You can use the exact same code. So if you're not sure when we get over there, I'll help you out. If you've taken it in the past and you're not sure, I think all of our stats teachers at Eastern except one use this exact same textbook. Okay? And if you take it out another place, maybe it'll still work. So you're welcome to try. So here's where you go. You go into Pearson MyLab and Mastering. I'll kind of show you what that looks like. So I'm going to pull up the computer. You guys kind of read along. I like typing in my math lab. There's actually about 15 different words you can type in that take you to this exact same website. There's my stat lab, my math lab, my science lab, Pearson MyLab and Mastering. There's a bunch of different things, all right? So it'll take you to this main website, You just click on it. Now, to register, you need to click Student right here. All right? So you'll click the Student tab. And you need three things. You need an email, your course ID, which is the thing listed on here, and number 3, that's the course ID with my last name, the Bell 18471. And then access code or credit card. You actually don't need this right away. Okay? It gives you 14 days of temporary access, which is pretty nice. Now, I will say, if you go buy it from the bookstore, I think it's $130 or so. If you buy it directly from Pearson, I think it's like $96. So it's a little bit cheaper. Okay? And for most of you in here, you're probably not waiting on financial aid for that stuff, so that's a little bit easier. It's a little cheaper, of course. So, and that's why I only make you get the code rather than the actual textbook, because to buy the textbook new, because you can't buy a used textbook and get the code with it. You have to buy a new one. I think a new textbook's like $160. That's why I decided to go this route. All right. Basically, it's about half of what it would cost. So you click. Make sure you don't click Australian customers. Make sure you click the OK Register Now. And here's where you put the course ID. So you go Bell 18471. And you're probably familiar with this if you've used it before. Now from right here, if you've used Pearson before, you're welcome to use your other username and password. You don't have to create a new account. If you've never used Pearson before, you hit the Create button right here. Okay? And make sure right here on this part that it has my name, taught by Matt Bell, course ends July 31st. I actually need to change that date. That was just when I was constructing this. That was the day I put up there. But it's really because I like to give myself a few extra days after the course is over. Because what will happen is whatever that date is, man, it shuts it off. You can't even log into the class. So I give you a few days afterward so that I can calculate your final grade and all that. So I don't think, because final grades aren't due till like the 28th of July. All right? So then hit Create if you've never done it before. And let me go through here because I want to show you where the temporary is. So type in whatever email address you check the most. I would prefer your Eastern one, but if you don't use it as much, maybe if you use Gmail or Yahoo, use that. Okay? But everybody in here probably has a, so let's go john.doe1234 just to see what's going on in the next one. Username, make sure you pick a password. Of course, it's got to have all these different characteristics, right? Eye color, weight, height, place you were born, all that type of stuff, right? It's got to have all these different criteria. Then put your first name. Oh, and then I didn't even type it in the same. Whoops, I forgot what I typed up here. There we go. Now, what you put right here for first name, last name is what's going to show up in my grade book. All right? So put whatever name you want to be called in class. Now, what shows up in Banner is your legal name, right? So I don't care what you put here. So, put whatever you want to be called in here. Oh, first and then last. Then, of course, pick a security question. And then always accept the license agreement and then create the account. Now, from this point, there it is. The code's 95 if you buy it directly from Pearson. It's a little more expensive from the bookstore because they got to give you their markup, right? So here's if you've already bought the access code, like from the bookstore. Does anybody have this right now? Has anybody went and bought it? No? Okay. Good. I sent everybody email, so you guys checked your email. That's good. So that's where you put in if you already have the access code. Here's where you go in, and basically you just enter in your credit card information, and it logs you into my grade book. If you don't have, if you don't want to pay for it yet, or you want to wait till Friday because you get paid, right here's your link for your temporary access. Click this, it'll log you directly into my grade book. You'll be in there for 14 days. Now, after 14 days, if you don't pay for it, it'll disable your account. But you can still log back in and pay for it, all right? So that's how you get into my grade book, okay? Now, once you get in and you log in, when you go back, you'll go to My Math Lab. After you complete that process, and then every time you go, see, I'm typing My Math Lab again. It sends you to the same place. Bless you. Then you would just go to Sign In. So this is a good page to favorite on your browser, on your computer, whichever one you're going to be doing your homework on. Then, you only do this register the one time. And then from there, you go to Sign In and put in your username and password. I've already logged in on this computer. That's why it sent me straight in. Our class will be called Stat 213. Notice one person's already been enrolled in it. And I have one student in media site that's probably sitting watching right now, and that's probably the student that's logged in, all right, because I've emailed him some stuff. So this Foundations for Statistics is another class I'm working on that has nothing to do with you guys. So this is our class, and it even tells me if you're enrolled with temporary access, all right, so I can, let you know, well, your access is about to expire, so, so you can get it. Then you click on the Stat 213 button. Oh, let's go back here. It might have logged me out because it took too long. Oh, there we go. Now, your guys' page won't look just like this. This is the instructor view. You guys won't see this stuff that has the screen slashed off, okay? So to do your homework on here, you'll log in. Notice right here is your gradebook button. You'll click that. You can check what your grade is in the course at any time. Notice I haven't done anything, so there's no grade right here. And then you can click that Show Overall Score, and it'll kind of give you a breakdown of where you're getting all your points from. Notice there's 3 categories. Okay, homework, test, and then final exam. Oh, and I need to adjust those a little bit. See, this is what the other classes were, which I decided I'm going to change them a little bit. See how there the final and the test was 80%, 80 out of 100 points. You guys are only going to be 75. So I'll change that slightly here after class. It's real simple for me to do it. It's another reason why I like this package. So that's your grade book. To do your homework, you click on this homework button. And this tab will not be as busy when you log in here because you won't see this stuff, all right? And then here's all the different homework assignments already mapped out here for you. Notice I've assigned everything for the entire semester all the way down to the bottom. But I have not put a due date for these yet. So you can actually still get in there and work on this stuff, all right? You can kind of get ahead if you need to. Maybe if you're going to be gone for a little while. Notice I only have the due date set up for up until 4.4. And those still might change. All right, we're kind of playing it by ear. Okay, so there's 2 things that I want you guys to do today. This participation agreement, which basically says I'm aware that you need to get in and do your homework, and you click yes. All right, that's all that is. And then an orientation of my Stat Lab. It kind of takes you around how to use the software, kind of where the different buttons are. If you have to put a comma or if you have to put an exponent, it kind of teaches you how to use that stuff. All right. And then your first homework assignment is right there, Chapter 1. Now, look, it says prerequisite warning. That's what these little green flags are. So for each assignment, for Section 2.1, there's going to be a prereq on 2.1 where you have to do Chapter 1 before you can do the next assignment. You have to score at least an 80 on it, which means even if you do it late, you can still meet the prereq. All right? And that, that's just so you have to go through the entire course. Now, since I'm the instructor, I can click continue and bypass the prereq. You guys can't, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and click continue and just kind of look at what the homework assignment. So this first one is pretty long, all right? Your other section homeworks aren't going to be this long. This is because it's the entire chapter. So notice there's 16 questions. Click question 1. When this happens, our computers aren't going to be updated until the fall. They're actually in the process of doing it now. And it doesn't do any good to update the Java because it's got deep freeze on it. So when you reboot the computer, it goes right back to the previous state. So each time you see this, you'll just click this little circle and then hit allow now. All right. And drop back behind here. And then it's loading. There we go. See how it's got textbook, StatCrunch? In the homework, you're going to have that little help right there. So if you're not sure, well, what is statistics? Well, you click this textbook button. It sends you directly to the section in the textbook that has that definition. Right? So it's really user-friendly in that sense. I'll use the textbook a lot in this class from the computer. So you get to here, you actually scroll down, and there it is. Look, all the definitions are always in bold right here. See how that word's in bold? Can you guys see that? There's a light little too bright. And there it is. You're like, well, what does statistics mean? Oh, there it is. And we'll go back over these definitions here in a minute. I'm just kind of teaching you how to get around in the software. So it's really useful. It's really nice, especially later on when we get a little bit farther in this semester, I'll call it, even though it's only a summer session. All right. This StatCrunch we'll learn how to use. It's a really nice software package that helps us do different types of things with statistics. All right. See, and then it's got a spreadsheet looking thing just like Excel. So we'll learn how to use this thing, all right? I don't want to spend too much time on it right now. So this one's pretty long, and you'll notice this first chapter, it's just a lot of definitions. Not much math, a lot of English, all right? A lot of reading. And that's something else we need to get used to in this class. That's probably the main difficulty with statistics, is there's a lot of reading, all right? There's a lot of word problems. It's not really there's not really an equation and you say solve for X. That's not really how stats works. All right, you've got to kind of read through a little blurb about something, pick out the necessary information, and draw conclusions about it. All right, so it's really nice because it's applicable, right? You'll never say, well, where am I going to use this? I mean, stats are used everywhere. You know, anytime you want to justify doing anything, you need statistics. Right? If you go to your boss and say, well, I need a raise. Well, show me the stats. Show me why you need a raise. What have you done to make you think that you need a raise? Well, you say, well, I've made the company this much money. I brought in this many more clients. That's all statistics. All right, that's a way to analyze. And it's really nice, you know, when your boss sees that you back up your statement with actual data, then it carries a lot more weight. All right, then you'll probably get even more of a raise. Okay, so stats are used everywhere, and a lot of applications I like to use are for sports. A lot of sports applications for statistics, all right? And you'll notice as you go through this chapter 1, a lot of different definitions. Explain how populations and variables differ, all right? We probably won't be able to get through all of chapter 1 today. I've actually made the due date for this, I think next Wednesday. Yeah, or this Wednesday. So see up here it says name, chapter 1, see it says due. 6-3, all the homework assignments I have set up to be due at midnight of the due date, or 11:59 p.m., okay? Now, that doesn't mean go start them at 11:45 p.m., all right? Because they're kind of long. They take some time. Another nice thing with this is, you know, maybe you've got 20 minutes to work on stats. You can go log into your homework, do a few questions, and come back to it, all right? It doesn't restart. You get to go back where you left off. You know, take it in little chunks, okay? You know, you can't eat a whole ham in one session, but if you eat a little bit each day, then you can eat it all. Right? That's kind of how stats is. You got to take it a little bit at a time. Okay, so this will be due 6-3. And then I have the due dates listed over here. The prereq right now just means you have to do the participation agreement. Okay? There's that. So I showed you how to get into my math lab. Retaking or continuing a course. If you are retaking this course or enrolling in another course with the same book, be sure to use your existing username and password. You will not need to pay again. So that's nice. Okay? And then to sign in later and additional information. Oh, let me show you one thing. Every once in a while, this will glitch and there'll be a problem. This help and support is how you get a hold of the people. You know, maybe you'll say, it's not recognizing my password, or if you forget your password. It's got a forget password link on the login screen, and it sends you to whatever email you tell it. But if you need other help, you click this help and support, and then you go students, or no, that's system requirements, excuse me. And then down here, support educator, 24/7 technical support. And then what you want to do is go contact us. And the best way to get a hold of them is to do a live chat. See right here? Start a live chat. Rather than wait on the phone. You don't really want to call them and sit on the phone. The live chat is the best way to get a hold of them. And they're really pretty quick with helping. All right? You know what it might be? Maybe you're using your home computer and you're using an old browser that needs to be updated. Or your cookies need to be deleted. Or it might just be a little small thing. I will say that it does not like Internet Explorer very much. All right? A lot of programs don't like Internet Explorer very much anymore. The two main browsers are either Firefox, which I'm using now, or Google Chrome. All right? Now, if you're using a tablet, like a Kindle, their, what's it called? Silk is their browser. It still does all right. Silk will not open the Java windows, which is what the homework is done in, that little pop-up window. So a tablet won't do that. Your Apples are fine. You're welcome to use a Mac. Now, you can use something that runs on the Android. I think it'll open it up, but a Kindle doesn't have Java, so you can't do it on a Kindle. Now, you could log in and check your grades, but you can't open up the little extra window. That's something you'll see as you mess around with this stuff a little bit more. Okay? So the timetable for this class is set up from 9 to 10:50, but there's actually, the way it's set up is it's 50 minutes of contact time for every hour. So it's really only an hour and 40 minutes of FaceTime each day. So what I want to do each day is take like a little break about 10 o'clock for about 5 minutes, just kind of stand up, walk around. So we're not just sitting here for 2 hours straight. I mean, this room's a little bit warm. I'm going to talk to him and see if I can get him to turn the temperature down a little bit in here. So that's just a nice little break, walk around the building, use the restroom, get a drink of water, okay, and then come back and we'll finish out the course. Finish out the section for that day. Okay. So I haven't really got into any of the actual stats, right? This is just all the preliminary things. So the main things you're going to use in here are your homework, your gradebook button, study plan. This is just extra homework. This is formula sheets and stuff I'll show you. All right, if I don't explicitly tell you, don't worry about it. Because I copied this shell from another instructor, and she had some extra stuff in here that I'm not really going to use that much. StatCrunch we'll use a little bit later on. But I want to show you how to get to your textbook. See down here where it says Multimedia Library. That's a pretty good inclination that that's going to be a book online, right? Multimedia Library. So you click that. There's actually a lot of useful stuff in here. So what first thing you need to do is select your chapter and your section. Now, when you go and select chapter 1, there's no sections. It's just chapter 1. That's why your homework assignment is just chapter 1. So you click chapter 1 review, click select all, and then find now. It pulls up all the multimedia associated with chapter 1. And right here is your textbook. So you click that, and that'll pull your textbook up for chapter 1, the thing we were actually looking at. The same textbook that pulls up from your homework. It's the exact same thing. It's just in the homework, when you pull up your textbook, it only stays on the specific section. You can't really change the section. Here you can go to wherever you want when you open your textbook this way. I got all kinds of windows open. And then over here you can navigate around inside your textbook. Right here, up at the top, notice there's a print button. So you can print the pages out of your textbook. You're welcome to do that. Print a few pages, hole punch them, and put them in your 3-reading binder. All right? Especially in chapter 1 where there's a lot of definitions. Okay? Maybe if you missed a definition or you just need to see it again. Okay? And then it pulls up. Right here's the beginning of chapter 1. Boom, there it is. Okay? Another thing I want to show you that I find pretty interesting, but actually students don't seem to like it, because I guess it's PowerPoint, so you see a PowerPoint, so I guess your mind switches off. You think it's a different type of thing. But the PowerPoint is basically the Reader's Digest version of the textbook. Basically removes all the fluff, all the examples, all the extra words, and just gives you what you need to know. All right? So this is a really nice way to study. So there's 1.1. Look right there. Boom, your first definition. Statistics is the science of data. This involves collecting, classifying, summarizing, organizing, analyzing, presenting, and interpreting numerical information. All right, so that's your first definition. Your first question on your homework asks you, what is statistics? Statistics is the science of data. Okay? That involves all these different things: collecting, classifying, summarizing, organizing, analyzing, presenting, and interpreting numerical information. Now, we're not really going to do much presenting in here of numerical information. But for your majors, you probably will. That's why you have to take this class. All right? Because eventually, at some point, you're going to have a lot of data that you're going to have to present. These two words, numerical information, is another name for data. Data is numerical information. And I'll just show you the PowerPoint's useful for Chapter 1. I won't use them again, but they're nice for right now because there's so many specific definitions. All right? So you guys go ahead and write that one down. Let's get your statistics definition. The science of data. This involves collecting, classifying, summarizing, organizing, analyzing, presenting, and interpreting. that big enough? Let me make it a little bit bigger. There we go. That's a little better. And you're not going to spend a whole lot of time collecting data in here. Your data is already going to be collected for you. All right? The book will say, here's your data. You need to classify it, summarize it, organize it, analyze it. And then finally, interpret it. This is the most important thing, right? Because anybody can look at data and put it in a box and say, well, this looks like this, but what does it really mean, right? What's the interpretation of it? People get paid millions of dollars just for this, to interpret data, right? People on Wall Street, right? They see all these numbers coming across, the Dow Jones, NASDAQ. They see all this data. They can summarize it and categorize it and classify it, but interpreting it, what's going to happen next? That's where the big bucks are. Okay? Does everybody have that definition? I'll leave it up there for another minute. So not a lot of mathematical stuff in this first chapter. Kind of laying the groundwork. It's like learning the alphabet before you can read and write. And that's kind of what we're doing here in chapter 1. This is the alphabet of statistics. And this is nice that we're not really assuming much knowledge in here. I mean, this is the first thing we learn is the definition, okay, of statistics. Really, the only assumed knowledge I have for you is that you can solve simple linear equations. Can you solve for x? 3x plus 4 equals 7. Can you solve for x? Really pretty simple stuff. Nothing too over the top. Okay? And that was it. That's the end of 1.1. 1.2. So there's two types of statistics. The first one is called descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics does what the root word of this is. Describe. It just gives a description. All right? It just says what. Descriptive statistics utilizes numerical and graphical methods to look for patterns in a data set, to summarize the information revealed in a data set, and to present that information in a convenient form. So it just looks at it, says, well, these two things look the same, and then it displays it to you. I'm not saying, well, based on this data, I expect this to happen. That is not descriptive statistics. A descriptive statistic would be to say, this class is, what is there, 6 people in here? 2 out of 6, 33% is male, 67% is female in here right now. That's a descriptive statistic. So descriptive statistics are definitely the easier of the two. Because you just kind of look at it, put it in a box, and say, well, these look the same. Okay? And you might be thinking, well, what's a data set? Well, I'll give you a bunch of data sets. Okay? I'll say, well, an ornithologist measured the first 100 birds he saw, and the wingspan was such and such. That's just a data set. I mean, around here, we could make a lot of data sets just based on birds, right? There's a lot of different birds in this area of New Mexico. It's really pretty unique, the numbers of species that are around here. I mean, we could do a statistical class just on the birds of this area. That's how much there is. Because it happens to be right kind of on the pipeline where they all migrate. It's right over this area. All right? Somebody have this one? So that's what I want you to think about. Descriptive statistics describes data. Puts a description to it. Now, how many of you have watched poker on ESPN? Ever seen poker on TV? You know, down at the bottom, it'll say what their cards are, and it'll give you a little percentage. That percentage says that's their probability of winning the hand. Right? It says, well, they have a 23% chance that they will have the better hand at the end. That is what's called an inferential statistic. That is making an assumption based on the future. That's saying what we're going to think, what we think is going to happen. Inferential statistics utilizes sample data to make estimates, decisions, predictions, and other generalizations about a larger set of data. So anybody can kind of look at data and describe it, right? That's kind of like a monkey see, monkey do method. You see something, you write it down. This is really what makes humans different than other animals, is the fact that we can make inferences. We can say, well, based on what's happened in the past, I suspect that this will happen in the future. And a lot of times this word prediction gets us in trouble, right? Especially if you predict wrong. So an inferential statistic uses sample data to make estimates, decisions, predictions, and other generalizations about a larger set of data. So an example of a descriptive statistic would be this class is 33% male, 67% female. An inferential statistic would be, well, I suspect the entire population at Eastern is 33% male, using the sample of this class to make an inference about a larger set of data. So you kind of see where you can get in trouble making those inferences. I mean, if your sample data is bad, then you can't make any inference based on that. So you really got to collect a good sample. A lot of, like doing a blood test is an inferential statistic. Based on the little bit of blood they pull from your arm, they estimate that in your entire body you have high blood sugar, or whatever it happens to be. Now that's a very, that's not really a prediction because our blood's the same everywhere, right? So a little blood sample tells us about our entire body. Now when you're talking about a population of human beings and say, well, 33% are male in here, is 33% going to be for the entire population of Eastern? That's where you get a little bit of a problem because it's not as homogeneous as our blood. It changes. So that's the two types of statistics, descriptive and inferential. An inference is making a prediction. All right? Right? An inference would be, well, it's 78 degrees right now. I infer that the high is going to be 93. That's an inference. Okay? A descriptive would be, well, it's 73 degrees right now because I can actually put a thermometer on it. And then this is a descriptive statistic. All right, it just gets all the Girl Scout cookies sold and puts them in categories. My favorite's definitely not the highest on here, which is this one. Man, those are the best ones, I think. The Samoa's and coconut ones. So 19% of all Girl Scout cookies that are sold are Samoas. Now, this is a descriptive. An inference would be that if I surveyed 100 people, 19 of them would like Samoas the best. That's making an inference. And 25 of them would like Thin Mints the best. Based on previous data, I can infer what it's going to be in the future. Now, as long as my sample size that I got this data from is significantly big, then I can be pretty sure that 19 people will like Samoas. But if I only sell cookies to, say, 50 people, that sample's probably not big enough. Now, if this is from all Girl Scout cookies sold in the entire United States, you could probably be pretty sure that it's going to be pretty close. All right? I never even heard of this one. Have you guys? Trefoils? If I'm even pronouncing that right. Okay, so that's a descriptive. Okay, so we've done three definitions. We've defined statistics and we've broken it into two sections. Descriptive and inferential. Fundamental elements of statistics. Let's go just a little bit further. I'll probably quit right here after this section. An experimental or observational unit is an object. Now, it could be people, it could be things. We could be counting the number of quarters in a jar, all right? Transactions, events, and we'll see a lot of different things, all right, about which we collect data. So an experimental unit is an object about which we collect data. Okay? The temperature outside would be an experimental unit. That's why we say object, because it's not necessarily a person. And we could be collecting data about all the deer in this area. Right? Those obviously aren't persons, but they are things. Right? So we could say, of all the deer in eastern New Mexico, what percentage is male, what percentage is female? All right, those would be our experimental units. I probably won't call it this. I'll probably call it an observation more than an experimental unit, but it's the same thing. It's what we want to know about. What are we trying to draw conclusions about? All right. And you can see how these PowerPoints are a lot nicer to look at than the textbook, right? Especially for these definitions. The textbook kind of has a lot of examples tied in with these definitions. And you're going to mess with this on your homework so much that I don't think I need to kill you with examples while we're talking about these, because you'll see it on your homework. And if you have questions, come in tomorrow and ask me, all right? And we'll answer the questions. Population is a set of units. So before an experimental unit could be deer, the population would be all the deer, okay? A population is a set of experimental units that we are interested in studying. So my experimental unit would be mule deer in eastern New Mexico. My population would be all the mule deer in eastern New Mexico, the set of the experimental units. Or birds or fish or whatever it happens to be. Okay? It could even be transactions. Right? It could be all the orders at McDonald's. Right? We could take every single order at McDonald's and that could be my population. What's the average amount of money spent at McDonald's? I would take every transaction and basically add them all together and divide it by the number of transactions, right? And that would tell me an average amount of money spent. Now, I'd probably want to break that down into morning, lunch, and afternoon, right? Because you spend less money in the morning just because the menu is a little bit cheaper, right? On average. Okay? So population, now I know when you hear that word, you automatically think people, right? How many people live in New Mexico? In statistics, a population is anything that we're studying, okay? It could be the sand in Oasis State Park. Right? It could be anything, all right? But the key when we're doing good statistics is to define your population right off the bat. What do we care about? A variable is a characteristic of the population. Male, female would be the variable. The population is deer. A variable would be how many are male, how many are female. Right? A variable is a characteristic or property of an individual experimental unit in the population. Right? So I could define the population as this class. I can make a variable be how much money do you have in your pocket right now. That could be my variable. Or do you wear eyeglasses? Or are you over 6 feet tall? Or what's your blood type, right? Any of that stuff could be a variable. So variable in stats is a little different than a variable in math. Right? When you think about variable in, say, college algebra, it's something that changes, right? It varies. A variable is just a characteristic. It's not going to change. And if we're talking about height of adolescence, it will change, but it really depends on your population. Okay? So, from a population, we have variables. A sample is a subset of the population. So I could say the population is all the mule deer in eastern New Mexico. If I go out and capture 10, that is my sample. Right? It's a subset of the population. Now, in a perfect world, my sample would be the same size as the population. But think how much time and money it would take to capture every mule deer in eastern New Mexico. I mean, it's just really not feasible. This is why we only do a census on the United States once every 10 years. Because it's too hard to get data from the entire population. The population is too big. So what do? Well, they go and they survey people. You see the stuff on the news. 1,500 people were asked whether they like lines on the road. Right? That's a sample. So what they do is as long as your sample is chosen in a good manner, it'll give you good information about the entire population. But you got to make sure when you select that sample that you're not biased. Right? You don't kick out people that make over $100,000 or people that make less than $10,000, right? You want it to be characteristic. Which is why when we draw blood, we only need a little bit. Because a little bit of blood is characteristic of all the blood in the body. And so you don't need a big sample to draw inferences about all the blood in your body. When you're talking about deer, it'd be really difficult to get a good sample. You probably want to make sure that you have some young ones, some old ones. You want to make sure you pick some from different areas of the state so that it's characteristic, so that the sample has all the same characteristics of the population. If I was going to take a sample of these 6 students, I wouldn't want to just pick the 2 in the front, because I biased it. All right? That's called a convenience sample. You want to make sure it's characteristic. And picking a characteristic sample is difficult. Right? It's not easy. People, there's people that work for banks and stuff that this is all they do for their job, is construct characteristic samples. Here we go. A sample of voter registration. So imagine there's 145 million voter IDs in the United States. Here's a sample. The first, the second, and the 1500th voter. Now, is that a good sample? Probably not. If those 3 things were selected completely at random, it would be a pretty good sample. But I can't go in and say, I'm going to pick the first, second, and 1500th. That's probably not going to be a very good sample. And really, if I'm trying to draw conclusions about 145 million people, I'm going to pick a lot more than 3. Right? That proportion isn't very good. And as we'll see, about 1,500, when you're talking about big populations, 1,500 is a pretty good number. It seems to really be just enough to capture the essence of the population without being so big that you spend a lot of time and money tracking those people down. Gallup polls are usually right about 1,500 people. All right? A statistical inference, all right, is an estimate. So this is a lot like the definition of inferential statistics. I mean, basically those 2 words have been flipped around. Right? A statistical inference is an estimate, prediction, or some other generalization about a population based on information contained in a sample. So I would infer, well, since my blood that I drew was high in blood sugar, I can infer that my entire body has high blood sugar, or salt, or whatever it happens to be. All right? I mean, this is the key right here. This is what we're really after in statistics. I want to take a small sample, be able to extract data from that sample, and use that data to make inferences about everybody. But if the sample's not chosen in a good manner, then the inferences I make are going to be wrong. And there's kind of a good rule of thumb in statistics, or in anything really. Bad data is worse than no data. It's worse to have a bad sample than to have no sample at all and just guess. All right? Bad data is worse than no data. Okay? So that's something to always remember. If your sample is not chosen in a good fashion, the data you draw from it could be more harmful than useful. All right? Could make you a lot worse off than you were to begin with. So statistical inference and inferential statistics are really pretty much the same thing. This definition is basically the same. All right? A measure of reliability. And I haven't even defined this word yet. I'll get to that. Is a degree of uncertainty associated with a statistical inference. Now, let me give you an example of a measure of reliability. Right? Let me go online and look something up. And you guys have probably seen this before and probably didn't really understand exactly what it meant. Latest polls. Let's just click this. And political polls are a good example because they show up so much. Sample, MOE, Bush, spread. So that's the difference in the two. Oh, basically it's right here. That's the spread is range. So I'm looking for a very specific thing. And this might not send me where I want. I was looking at one this morning. Another word for this is what's called margin of error. Have you guys ever heard of that? Margin of error? You go to images. Okay, here we go. No. Come on, show me one of the things I'm looking for here. You guys probably have a pretty good idea of what I'm talking about. No. So, you know when it shows a poll or something like this, you know, and it gives you a different things, and then down at the bottom it'll have a little plus or minus 5%. That is a measure of reliability. That means the numbers are correct within a 5% above or 5% below clip. So there's basically, that's the range or the margin of error from this data, right? And I can't pull, no, I didn't pull one up right away, but we'll see hundreds of these throughout the semester, right? Percentage of viewers, you know, and then down at the bottom it'll say plus or minus 5%. That's a measure of reliability. How good is that data, right? You want that number to be as small as possible, right? Another way to think about it is what's called a confidence interval. Well, I'm confident that that number's correct within 5% higher or lower, all right? Margin of error is another way to think about it. So that's what a measure of reliability is. Usually quantitative, which I haven't defined this word yet, about the degree of uncertainty associated with a statistical inference. Okay. Now these you don't have to write down right away. It's just something to think about, because this will really help to push in what a descriptive is. Now I wouldn't ask you on a test to fill these out, okay? Something to have an idea though. 4 elements of descriptive statistical problems. First, you need to know the population, most important thing. What are we talking about? One or more variables, right? Do we care about male, female, if they're above 300 pounds or below 300 pounds? Depends on what we're talking about, right? Maybe if we're talking about, if we're stocking something with fish, right? You want to know how many old fish there are, how many adults, how many adolescent fish there are, so you know how many to put in. Tables, graphs, or numerical summary tools. On that web page I just pulled up, there was a bunch of graphs, right, describing different things in a poll. Those were all descriptive statistics. They took the data from the survey and put it in a nice graph, right? You know, I can come in here and say, well, how many people have AT&T or Verizon or other, right? That's a descriptive statistic. Now, an inferential would be if somebody walked in this room, I'm guessing they have AT&T because most of the class in here did. That would be an inferential statistic, all right? And then finally, identify patterns in the data. Now, from these patterns, we can make inferences, but that's not part of descriptive statistics. Okay? 5 elements of an inferential statistical problem. Notice 1 and 2 are exactly the same. First, you have to define the population, and then 1 or more variables. What do we care about? Then we create a sample, and then these two are the difference. The inference about the population based on information contained in the sample. And then finally, we need a measure of reliability. How good is our inference? Are we pretty sure that it's correct, or do we have no idea if it's correct? How reliable is the data? All right? So these two things, picking a good sample directly involves our measure of reliability. If it's a bad sample, our conclusions aren't going to be very reliable. Right? And then let's do 2 more. Finally, the word quantitative. So there's 2 types of data. One is quantitative, are measurements that are recorded on a naturally occurring numerical scale. Quantitative data could be your height, your weight. All right, those are types of quantitative data. And a way to remember quantitative, this word quant means dealing with numbers. It also has this N, means dealing with numbers. The word quant is a number. People in the stock market that actually analyze the data to tell where you can make some money, they call them quants. That's their nickname, right? Are measurements that are recorded on a naturally occurring numerical scale. So these are the two words I want you to associate together. Quantitative is numerical. So for this class, I could collect height, right, weight, shoe size, waist size, hat size, all that type of stuff is a quantitative data. What about eye color? Is that a number? That's a different type of data. That's what's called qualitative data. Are measurements that cannot be measured on a naturally numerical scale. They can only be classified into one of a group of categories. So qualitative would be your favorite color. That's an example of qualitative data. Yes or no questions are qualitative. Do you wear glasses? Yes or no? All right? So quantitative, which is what that previous slide, remember it said quantitative? Right, the measure of reliability, right? You know, I'm certain within 5%. That's why it's usually quantitative, your measure of reliability. Your measure of reliability is not really going to be like qualitative data. So qualitative is non-numerical. Right? All right, I think I'm going to stop right there. So I'm not done with chapter 1 yet. Notice there's still a couple sections, a lot of more definitions. Look at all this stuff. Okay? So I'm going to stop right there at qualitative. But up to this point, you can do about half of your homework assignment for chapter 1, based on just the definitions we've covered today. Okay? So quantitative deals with numbers. Qualitative is non-numerical. Like eye color, favorite shoes, what kind of dog you own, right? That type of stuff would be. Now, how many dogs you own is quantitative. What kind they are is qualitative, right? Do we kind of see the difference between those two things? Alrighty. Okay. What I want to do now is go over to the math lab in JWLA so we can go get in my grade book. All right? Because we got about 30 minutes left of class. If that's enough time to go log in there, I want you to get into my grade book, and I want you to at least do the first couple homework assignments. The orientation, the participation agreement. I mean, look at what this is. It's basically... Oh, okay. Yeah, this is all the prereqs on it. So you have to do this before you can do any of these assignments. I agree. Read the syllabus. I understand. This is basically saying that I went over the syllabus and you agreed to it, is all this stuff is. Okay? So, I mean, you just read it and click agree. If you disagree, we'll talk about it. I'm just kidding. Syllabus. Yeah, right here. This is important, too, with your DSO recommendations. Accommodations are not retroactive, right? Which means you can't come take a test and then later on say, well, I want to retake it in the testing center, all right? Be proactive about this stuff. And you'll notice in college, if you're proactive about most things, you'll be fine, all right? As long as you come up beforehand and tell the professor what's going on. They're a lot more lenient, all right? We're a lot more understanding when you come up beforehand and you take care of business, all right? Don't come afterward and say, well, I missed because my cat was throwing up, all right? If your cat was throwing up, I mean, that might be a problem. Let somebody know, all right? Try and be as proactive as possible. Okay? So I want you to do this one and the orientation. And what I'll do is I'll show you where my office is because it's right across the hall from the my math lab, or from the math computer lab. And this just shows you how to read through. See this continue button down at the bottom? Just teaches you how to get through. Type the number 1 in the following answer box. I mean, it's really simple stuff, all right, to get used to my math lab. This Ask My Instructor, when you click that, it's going to shoot me an email. And right now it's set up to my Gmail account because that's what I log into. Because 100 years ago when I was going to school here, I took my math lab and I used my ENMU account. So Pearson doesn't like that anymore. It can't make me an instructor once I was a student, so I have to use this other one. But you're welcome actually to come in here and put in my Matt.Bell. Yeah, I'm going to try and make that adjustment in my math lab. Okay? It just shoots me an email, is all it does. Okay? Which is the best way to contact me. Alrighty? So this orientation is real simple. 4 plus 1. Okay? Put that in there. Alrighty? Okay, let's get our stuff together and go. So we're going to go out this door and then towards JWLA, which is the new building over there. And then we're going to go up to the second floor of the JWLA. Let me get all my stuff together. Something's come back. Everybody did get a syllabus, right? Sometime we might meet in this lab, and I'll make sure everybody knows beforehand. I'll probably put a note on the door as well.